assortment of, Texas films and Texas filmmakers. It was great to be a part of that. I'm really excited to be included in the lineup. Jaded is a work of fiction, but it was inspired by a true story that hit headlines here in Dallas after my best friend's daughter committed suicide, kind of obliterated all of our lives. So this started off as a channel for grief, but really morphed into a passion project in the quest to shine a light on the families left behind after enduring such a tragedy. So it's been a long journey. It's done really well in the festival circuit, and I'm really delighted that it made into the Topaz Film Festival. So I'm so honored and grateful to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What a personal story to share. I really commend you for being able to take the responsibility on of telling that story respectfully and so profoundly. Very well done. Lauren, is there anything else you wanted to share before we open up for questions?
Yeah. So Marcia, I just wanted to say I loved your film. That was incredible. And you did an incredible part in that. First off, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that story with us. As for my film, so the other three producers, which were they were also in the film as well. They're all from Texas. They're local to Texas. I'm from Tennessee, which is very similar to Texas. But we kind of created this in the heat of the pandemic. We were all living in LA at the time, and I came back to Tennessee to be with my family. And we were like, what do we do with this time? So and we had Zoom meetings like every other couple of days, and we just kind of were like, let's make a film. So we made it in the heat of the pandemic, and we actually stayed on location at where we shot. That location was actually a children's camp that they used during the summertime, but of course because of COVID. So all of our cast and crew, it was really fun. We stayed in bunk beds, and there was writing all over the bunk beds, and we all kind of felt back in summer camp. But it was really great. All of the other girls, they got to bring their husbands, and so it was kind of like we all went to church together. So it was like a fun kind of family thing that we all got to do together to make that film. And it was my first time kind of ever acting on screen as well as producing.
Wow.
So, it was an incredible experience all around for my first time producing as well as acting. So
you did a great job.
Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You really did. What a talented group. Well, we do have our first question, and Lauren, it's for you. So you left the ending of the film pretty open. So if you could add more to the story, what would you add?
So I think my interpretation, so our director was pretty adamant about leaving it open to interpretation. So for me, I kind of saw it going in the direction as Quinn, my character, was the only one that was left alive at that moment. So what happened to the other two, and Quinn was just kind of left to fend for herself in that situation, just because I think she was the one that wasn't as equipped to handle a situation like that. Mm-hmm. So we kind of left it open to interpretation because that's the fun of filmmaking and writing. But that's kind of how I took it as, and that helped me, do my character work to go through those emotions. And that's kind of how I wrote the ending for my character. But I'm sure the other filmmakers and the other characters had their own.
Yes.
Room for a sequel. There's room.
Yeah. That's what we all had talked about that actually when I got to see the film done for the first time. We all were like, there might be something more to this.
Or a series even.
Right.
Wonderful answer. Okay, Marcia, this next one is for you. Since your film was based on real events, what made you decide to make it into a film? And did you have to get any special permissions?
So Jaded was inspired by a true story, but it is a work of fiction. So that's important. There are a lot of truths in it. Did I have to get permissions? I mean, not legally, but of course I did get approval from the family that it was inspired by, and a local family here in Dallas. They were a part of it. Sue Longcar, Grace's mother, the true girl that committed suicide, her mom was in the movie. The Grace Longcar Foundation donated money to the budget in the making of the film. So there was a lot of support there. And of course, I wouldn't have gone forward with it if they were not a part of that process. I just actually finished shooting this year the true story of Grace's death. I'm in post-production right now for Losing Grace, Finding Hope, which really goes into what really occurred and the grief that a family goes through after suffering through such a loss. So it's been a really long journey, and I feel real responsibility to be true to the story and to honor all the families that have been touched by suicide. It's such a worldwide epidemic and growing. And I think the thing that really inspired me about Jaded was it really began as a channel for my own personal grief, and then it just morphed into this passion project. Grace Longcar was a local teen who killed herself here in Dallas. She came from a prominent family, and she was my daughter's best friend. She was like a second daughter to me, and her death obliterated us into a million fractured pieces, and she wasn't even mine. And I witnessed firsthand what they went through. And it's been such a devastating thing, but they're such a strong, powerful, faithful family. So it's just been an honor to be a part of sharing their story. And I'm grateful for the local recognition. I'm certainly grateful for being a part of Topaz, because I admire so many women who are part of this film festival. I truly, from afar, even if I haven't met you. So it's a wonderful thing to kind of come full circle locally.
Yes, I agree. And I admire your strength for being able to participate in something that really is personal to you as well. And I feel like the audience really resonated with that and was very impacted, because I do have a couple more for you, Marcia.
Oh, okay.
It says, the events included in the film were very unsettling. This person was wondering how you came to the ending, if the voiceover at the end was always the intentional ending, or was there an alternate ending that was also considered?
When I finally, I really shut down creatively for 3 years after Grace died. And I remember the day I decided I needed to get back in the ring, and I sat down at my computer and I literally fleshed out this story in 2 hours. It went through very little edits. So what I originally wrote is what we originally produced. I know of many stories. I mean, I'm not a professional. I'm not a doctor, obviously. I'm just a filmmaker and a creative person. And this is my first film, so now I'm a filmmaker. I've never been one before. I'm very aware of people who have survived suicides who have been immediately regretful that they made the choice the moment they made it. And knowing Grace, I remember having a dream after she died and feeling in my heart that she regretted it the moment that she made the choice. I'm certain of it. I could be wrong, of course, but I'm certain of it. And I just wanted the movie to express that the regret, that we can make choices in moments of passion and anger and upset and wish that we hadn't made them. I'm really hoping that anyone who's been touched by suicide, that has lost a loved one to suicide, will understand my purpose for the film was I want them to know they're not forgotten. That's so important to me. But secondly, on the flip side of that coin, I am hoping that anyone who's struggling to stay alive, and it's a real struggle, that they'll see this and realize how much they'll be lost, how much their lives matter, and that maybe it will give them, and it's a big wish, honestly, but maybe they could see it and just realize, oh, okay, it's worth one more shout out. I mean, it's worth trying to get help in one more way, one more time, one more call. And that maybe it'll just pause them long enough to stop them from making a choice like this. So I know there has been some mixed reaction to the ending. Um, but it was really important for me to include that.
Definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was very touching and thought-provoking in a lot of ways. I want to jump over to Lauren. We have a question. What was the inspiration for your film, and namely the character who had PTSD from their military service?
So when we had originally come up with this idea, our writer wanted to include kind of all three of us, me and the two other girls, in like all of our backgrounds. And so my father works really heavily with PTSD patients. He's a psychologist. And so in coming up with how to incorporate a little bit of we wanted to kind of find three different stories, and we were all very similar to our characters. And Taylor, the girl who plays the character with PTSD, she had never played a character who was really bold and wanting to she wanted to play, I mean, to be very blunt, she wanted to play a character with a gun. So we wanted to kind of find a way that she could do that with also telling a story I don't think that gets told very often, is women in positions like that, women in military positions. And PTSD is often not talked about because people are scared of it, in the sense of my character, Quinn, was scared of her and she had PTSD, but my character deep down wanted to help, but on the surface was uncomfortable with it. And I think people are often uncomfortable with that topic. And so when we were all brainstorming, that kind of got brought to the surface, and we wanted to figure out how we could kind of open up that conversation, strictly using, a women-based cast in that sense. So I think that we did a good job, I think, opening up the door to that. And I think that we really worked strongly with the relationships of our characters. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the idea came from. She wanted to use a gun, and we wanted to tell a story that doesn't get told very often. So yeah, and she spent a couple weeks training how to properly use it, and she did training with I can't remember the gentleman's name out of LA, but it was really interesting to watch her go through that journey as an actor and also build that character.
Very interesting. Lauren, want to connect that to another question as well, because one of our viewers wants you to speak to the lighting, since you had a lot of nighttime lighting. And were there challenges with that? Were there any other very specific challenges related to how you chose to shoot?
That is an incredible question. So we, like I said earlier, we were all friends from church. And so we were all very close. We, like a lot of people from church, did sound. A lot of people did. We had a great DP. So I was very, very, very adamant about wanting to do most of this at night. And so I had a conversation with the DP, and I said, what is this going to look like? What is this going to cost me? How hard is this going to be able to achieve? Because we're shooting on location in the middle of the woods. Are we going to be able to do this? And he assured me, he said, we will figure it out. So 2 days before the shoot, he told me that we didn't end up having enough batteries for the actual lights that he planned to use. So I went to Home Depot and I got probably $400 worth of extension cords from Home Depot, because I was determined for this to be shot almost all completely at night. So we had a million extension cords drug out from our base camp to where we had shot. And we had our first AD climbed up on a ladder into a tree and attached one of our big lights to come down. I mean, this was a very impressive question that someone just asked this, because this was probably the most intricate part of this entire film, was lighting this film in the middle of the woods. But we had an incredible team, and we were all we all treated one another like family. And so I think that helped in the sense of everybody was like, we're making this happen. Like this, without a doubt, is going to happen. So when I tell you, I had one of the first ADs take a chainsaw and cut a limb off of one of the trees to be able to rig the system where it could properly light us. That 100% happened. That was a really good question, because that was the toughest part of this entire film was lighting. And then so when we were running down the scene where we're running down the woods into the car, we had about 2 other people following us with flashlights. And then we had the car light rigged to where it could light us in the back. So
wow.
What happened with that.
I love that. You're such a great problem solver, and that is a huge tool in the tool belt for any filmmaker. So way to go on that, Lauren.
Thank you.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's
100%. And it all involves your team and who you're working with.
Yeah.
They made it happen.
Yes. Well, I think we have time possibly for one more. This one is for Marcia. It says your character had so many emotions. You went through sadness, anger, depression. As an actor, how did you tackle that role, having to constantly be changing and in those different mindsets?
Well, I wrote it, I directed it, I produced it, and I was in it. I didn't initially intend to wear all those hats. It ended up happening that way. We also filmed during the pandemic. We got the go-ahead from SAG for this. We got delayed, and then we got the go-ahead for this one weekend in October where the pandemic was locally contained. And I think for the first time in my life as an actor, actually it played out really well for this particular project. Since we were filming during the pandemic, my main concern was keeping everyone safe on set. We had the zone system, rapid testing, N95 masks, separate holding areas for cast and crew, sanitation, the whole 9 yards. But I only had so much money, so we had to film about 31 pages of script in 72 hours. It was very stressful. And I think it really worked well that I was playing the lead and also the actor, because it just meant less adjustments that need to be made, less directorial changes I might have to make for the character. I could just kind of show up and direct myself. But as an actor, I wrote the material. I was emotionally involved on an intricate level. I knew my lines backwards and forwards. I knew everyone's lines backwards and forwards, but I really gave myself the freedom, really for the first time in my life, and I'm not very young. So I just showed up, and I showed up knowing that it was in my DNA. I had prepared as well as I could, and I really gave myself permission to let it be what it was going to be. It didn't come out exactly as I had planned. It was really fascinating because we had no sit down read-throughs. We had no rehearsals prior. We did maybe a walkthrough blocking rehearsal, and it was 3 takes per scene. That's what we did. Take 1, back up, safety, move on. I didn't do any playbacks. I relied on the crew to pretty much tell me we had captured what we needed. So it was fascinating because I cast everyone in the movie. They were personally tied to the original story that the movie was inspired by, because I knew they'd be dedicated. I also knew their work intimately, so I knew they could just show up and pound it out. So that was a real blessing. And in terms of my performance, I think that I had great actors around me, and I was tied to the story emotionally, and it came out okay. So I think every actor should give themselves permission. Just take that one time. Lauren, you're really young and your work was lovely. It's hard when you're young to know to do this, but if you prepare and you are ingrained in the character and you do your homework, just that freedom that I felt of showing up and letting it lie was powerful. If you really do the work as an actor, it's there for you. I never really trusted it before. I'm the person who throws up in the bathroom before I go anywhere out on stage or anything. So this was a new process for me, and it worked well. So I would really encourage other people to take that risk.
Yes. Excellent answer. So, because you're both newer to filmmaking, we did have someone ask what advice you have for people who are also new to filmmaking. And either of you, both of you are welcome to answer that. I'm sure you both have very insightful advice.
Go ahead, Lauren.
So this was my very first film that I had produced, and I've produced two since then, and I was in both of them. I think that as far as, so I love being on the backside of it as well as acting, because I am able to let my type A-ness fly when I'm that I am unable to do when I am acting. And so being new to filmmaking, I think that I have learned an astronomical amount of things as far as hiring people and firing people. My last short film I just did, I had an editor that I had to pull the project from because I had to stay true to the story. That was actually kind of based on the previous film I just did was based on a school shooter. And with everything that's going on in the world right now, I had to stay true to that story. And so I think that the biggest advice that I could say is always basically don't sell out. Always stay true to the core of what you're trying to do. You're trying to tell stories. I think that the past 3 films that I've done, I've all had different kinds of problems, whether that be not enough money or that's someone's not doing what they're supposed to or a timing issue. But I think at the very end of the day, I had to stay 100% focused on my goal and what I want out of it and what I want for the people watching it, And so I think that the biggest advice that I could be is if it's not ready to be made, or if you're not ready to go forward with something, just wait a little bit longer. Don't there's no need to push, because it's going to happen when it happens. If you need an extra 2 months of funding, take the extra 2 months for funding so that you can have an incredible editor so that it doesn't fall apart in post. This particular film, A Fractured Mind, I learned to budget for post. That's what I learned from this one. How important it is to budget for post. So I think that's my biggest takeaway as a new filmmaker, and kind of what I've learned over the past couple of years. And especially, and Marcia, you can attest to this, producing and making a film and acting during a pandemic and in COVID is really, really, really tough. And it shows you what you're made of, because it's all these expenses that have actually nothing to do with filmmaking. It just has everything to do with the climate of the world that you're in.
Well, that's so true. In fact, I'd be interested to know what your budget is. So just to speak to what you said, trust the delays. We think in the moment that they're problems and they're issues and they're creating havoc in our lives, but honestly, it ends up kind of working out in the end. I love what was your budget, by the way? I would be interested to know.
So overall total, definitely under 5. I think possibly under $4,000 after everything. But I will say that we got very fortunate in the sense of the DP and all of his camera work was very, very minimal, because he was one second. God. Because trying to wash dishes. Because we're like all family friends and stuff like that. So I think that we got really lucky because none of the actors got paid. They did it as so we had a very, very low budget because we got really lucky, and I was very specific with, our PPE was probably some of the most where most of our expenses came from. Was our PPE.
As much, we ended up spending, it was a $10,000 budget. I got a $3,000 donation, and then I spent an additional $7,000 just on COVID precautions. And as much money as it cost, the responsibility as a filmmaker to keep people safe on set is monumental. So that does take a precedent and is really, really vital and very, very important. I think the the collaborative spirit that you create on set is vital, where everyone is hired to do a specific job and show up and do their gig, but at the same point in time, working with each other and helping each other out along the way. The other advice I would give really is basic stuff. Trust your gut. That instinct is there for a reason. I've never made a bad decision except when I haven't trusted my own instincts. Be really careful about your creative process. I think it should be dealt with as a sacred thing. It's lovely to get advice when you're seeking it, and some of it is very, very helpful, but you have to be really careful that you don't allow it to interfere. There's a real fine line between getting really good advice, and there's a lot out there to be had, but there's also interference that can happen. I think it's human nature sometimes to want to color the other person's creative process, and we need to be very delicate and careful with that. And then, the last thing is just pick your team wisely, which is what you were talking about, Lauren. A team can make or break your project. It's just so important to make certain that, and you don't always get it right. It doesn't happen every time. I'm really close. I used a lot of women in film people. Morgana Shaw was in my movie. She was fabulous. The entire Terry family. Sydney Cox, who is, I think was on the board. She's sensational to have on set because she's so good at so many different things. You pick the right team members with the same sort of simpatico and dynamic that you have, and it really plays your project forward. So I think all of those things are so important. I think the other thing I just wanted to say to young filmmakers or young actors, if career isn't going the way that you want it to, you can make it happen. I mean, I'm an older woman. This is my first movie. Just because I never made a movie before doesn't mean that I don't have the instincts for it. If you're a creative person and you're talented, I don't know a creative that isn't good in a myriad of ways. Singers choreograph, choreographers direct, actors write. So just trust that. And if your career is not going in the way that you want it to go, come up with your own project and find a way to make it happen. It's a really powerful way to take control of your talent and your vision and your goals. So it's just
100%. I couldn't agree to that more. That's one of the reasons we all made this film, is because we weren't auditioning as much as we wanted to. And I said, well, let's just make our own thing. So I'm so happy that you said that, because I couldn't agree more. Just take matters into your own hands.
So kudos to you, because you're so young and lovely, and look what you did. That's really incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, it is. And congratulations again to you both. If we do have some additional questions after this, we'll be routing everyone to the Women in Film Dallas Cafe, where they can continue. You're welcome to join them or to discuss. As we wrap, though, we would like to know if you have some projects that are coming out and if we can expect to see those at the next Topaz Film Festival.
I hope so.
Hopefully.
Do you have something else you're working on, Lauren?
Well, I just wrapped another short. It's called Samuel. We just got out of post a little bit ago. Hopefully that we'll see it at the next Topaz Film Festival. I guess that's all dependent on that side, but that is a very heavy story, similar to the other ones that were shown tonight. So hopefully that was another really tough producing decisions that had to be made the day of filming. So yeah, we'll see that. Just dropped that, and then working on some other things in pre-production. So, but that's all very far away.
Great. I'm doing my documentary. I'm in post, so hopefully.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. You were lovely and insightful, and we really gained a lot from this conversation. So I appreciate your time. Congratulations again, being part of the festival. And again, if you want to hang around, feel free to go to the cafe. We're also starting our experimental film blog next. So if you want to pop into the watch party and see those films, very, very welcome to join us. Thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.